So let's start with a new topic, that is JavaScript. So this topic which we are going to cover is only going to cover the elements of JavaScript that actually reflect the topic, that is user interface design. So let's start with the JavaScript. So before starting and constructing a new application that will show us how JavaScript can be used for the user interface and user experience. So the first thing we can do is start with a basic introduction. Why JavaScript is important? What is JavaScript? Why JavaScript? And then we are going to start going to work on the topic. So well, JavaScript is actually one of the most important languages in the modern world, and arguably not the first, it's at least second most popular language in the world. Why? Because JavaScript is only event-based language that actually has a very good fan base, very good support base, and when we talk about popularity, it means that it has a lot of support. So when I talk about support, it means is that JavaScript has so much support from the community as well as the creators and the moderators of the JavaScript. So when you have a lot of community, that means you have a lot of tutorials, lot of you can say guidance online available, so that when you are stuck at something, you get tons of different articles to address that same issue. So in my definition, popularity means a strong community and fan base. So JavaScript has that easily available. And another thing is that JavaScript is one of the most important browser languages. Why? Because browser understands certain languages. First one is markup language like XML and HTML. Then we have another language called it's not a language, but we can say it, that is cascading style sheet. Then we have JavaScript. So HTML is used to create a layout, then CSS is to give graphics to the layout, and then JavaScript can be said to give animations and life to the website that you are building. Okay, so I think that is more than enough for the introduction. What is JavaScript? And when we talk about why is JavaScript, well, I have told you that it has a lot of big community base and fan base, and then it's one of the most important languages because it's the language that is actually supported by the browser. When I talk about browser, I'm talking about internet browser like Mozilla, Chrome, Safari, Opera, Microsoft Edge. So it has a lot of benefits. Okay. So moving further, when we talk about JavaScript, it's like it's one of the very easy languages to include in your project because it does not require any additional library, especially when we are talking about the native JavaScript, which is not a framework but a generic JavaScript language that is called vanilla JavaScript. So all I have to do is declare that this chunk of code is JavaScript. The browser will automatically translate and compile that part and make use of that JavaScript code. So all you have to do is simply type here script, which is actually an HTML tag. So you can say that without HTML tag like script, you cannot actually use JavaScript here. So when I type script here, it means that this certain part will be called as JavaScript snippet or JavaScript chunk of code. Okay. So writing here type is equal to text slash JavaScript, or let's say I'm writing here application slash JavaScript. It does not have much of a difference. So you can write it even if you don't write it. Browser automatically, modern browser have this ability to actually understand this is JavaScript or TypeScript or vice versa. So when you write this, so this is how you just included a JavaScript. Now even if this is empty part, the browser will automatically understand why JavaScript or where JavaScript is located. One thing to note here is that usually the more it's a good practice to always put JavaScript at the bottom of the page. So although you can put the same tag over here or over here or even inside the body, but I would always recommend as a good front-end developer, okay, is that JavaScript should be always introduced at the bottom of the page. Why? Because HTML is a layout and we don't want it to have this wrong hierarchy. Why? Let me give you a small example. That is, let's say this is a box and this is where the whole UI will be rendered when you load a website like www.com. So this is a monitor and okay, so let me give it a very good design. Not good, at least not bad. Okay, so this place here is called a monitor, and let's say when you load a website, the first thing that should be loaded here is that the tags should be loaded. That where should be navigation bar, where should be this you can say a landing carousel or slider in the website, and where should the text be contained. Let's say it should be at the center of the website. So this is the layout. After you render a layout, then you actually decide what graphic should be applied over it. Then CSS is applied. After that, then you actually declare the JavaScript. Why? Because JavaScript is usually user centric or event based application code, because JavaScript actually changes or gives animation based on the IO events that user types, like click event, hover event, double click, then you have on mouse down, on wheel down. There are certain different animations based on those events. So it's obvious that when your website is fully rendered, only then you can do something that is like click event or that, so that the website behaves differently based on the actions you have performed. So always put JavaScript at the bottom. And let's say you don't want to type in this page and you want an extra JavaScript, just type script and then source is equal to, and let's say I'm creating a new file called index.js. So this is index, you can say there's the main JavaScript file, and just type here space and index.js. So this is the same thing, there is no different. So how can we make sure that JavaScript is working although I have done everything right? So I'm gonna just write an alert command, which is actually a message box that prompts and tells us that your JavaScript is running. So I can write here first application on JavaScript, that is hello world. It just works just like console system.println, just I think system.out.println in Java, then you have in C language printf, then you have cout in C sharp, I guess C++, sorry, and then you have print in Python language. So here this is our printf. Okay, so let me run this application. I'm not using live preview, it's my habit. You can see a message box is printed here, but one thing to note here is that each browser has its own style of printing the message box. See, it's giving in Chrome at top of the page, and in Mozilla it's at the left, very center, horizontally and vertically. And I prefer this Mozilla one because it actually shows you your focus is always on the center of the screen, so it gives you at a proper position. Okay, but it's about the preference of the developer, not necessarily I'm right. Okay, so JavaScript is working, and that is very good thing to do. Okay, so let's test it on the external file. Okay, we got this warning, alert is not defined. Well, it's nothing to worry about, and let me take it, and you can see hello world is printed. So that means our JavaScript is properly working, and this is probably a warning message because front-end development does not have errors. Even if they have errors, they are printed here in the console part of the developer tools of the browser. Same is the case in Mozilla, just like in the Chrome. we have this console part here which shows errors, warning. Anyway, so moving further, so let's do a scenario where we have a form, and after filling that form, JavaScript click event works to fetch all the data from that form. Okay, so let's say, since I'm not using the server side language here to post the data, let's just consider this div as a form element. Okay, and let's call it a form. Okay, so I'm gonna call this a parent tag and put this inside and call this main container, and we already have a class here called main container, and this main container will have total width and height. So now we can draw a form based on that. I have given it height so that the website can have height. By default there is no height to the container or body element window. Okay, so form should be width of 50% so that I can center it properly. Margin 0, auto, position relative, and top should be 25%. Okay, I can also give it a height, but let's not give it height for now. So for testing, let's put border solid silver, although I always put border, so it's not an issue. Okay, so we have this in the center, and minimum height, let's say it's 50% of the screen. Okay, so this alert is coming because I have put it in the external file. So I'm not going to use external file, so because there is only option for 2 tabs in the brackets.io, so I'm gonna use it here in the inline JavaScript. So this is just for your knowledge that we can use in separate file. It does exactly the same operations just like in the inline JavaScript. So when website is rendered, you just included this file, so it pretends that index.js is this part. So when your whole page is loaded, this index.js is actually rendered at the bottom of the page, even though it's a separate file. Okay, so minimum height is this, and top is 25%, and let's give it 25 VHI to check. I think it's already working fine, so nothing to worry about. Okay, so let's give it to let's create a login form. I guess login form is good one, and very easy to give you a good example. So this is our login page, and let's give it a header h3, and I said we were gonna call it login page. Okay, so give the parent class some padding, so I'll give it, we can also write em here, but I prefer percentile, so this is more than enough. And we all know that h3 and header elements have margin by default, so margin 0, so that it does not take over the whole place. Okay, I always like a font that is Chigo UI. This is my favorite. I don't know why, but you can call it a preference and font weight of 500, so that the font is not that thick. I think this one is fine, but I guess 600 can also be good. Yes, that's very good, much better than the one. Okay, let me check if h2 is better or h3. No, fine for now. Okay, so after that, let's create class field, input field. I'm doing this because it's easier that way to give it a label, and then so username / email, and input type is equal to text, and placeholder email or your nickname, something like that, blah blah. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so far so good, and this was supposed to be h3. I guess I did not properly save it. No, not this, not this one is. Okay, so the same case would be for H4. Now we can say BR here. Two rows. That is way too much. I think this is more than enough. Okay, good. So let's give all the input type is equal to text, comma, input is equal to password, same width and length. So width 100% and height should be 25 px. Let me see. 25 px is not small. I think more than enough. So let's just for this echo and let's test it. I think no. We better to give it a better font than as well. 1.1 or 2 em, I guess. Let's see. Oh, wait, that is way too much. 1 em. That is, yes, this is way better. So we are, let me check. No, it's way too much. So what I'm going to do is form h4 margin bottom 5. This is better. Okay. Although h3 has very small size, so font size is equal to 1.2 em. This is 4, I guess. Well, that depends how you like, so keep testing it, and I think it's enough. And then we can work on our next part, that is password. I hope you understand. I use Ctrl D to copy and paste at the bottom. Okay, so password, your account password. So yes, this looks good. So after that, let's go with the flow, and I guess now I can use this button, your account. There is no placeholder here. Value. Right. I think I put this same property in all. Yes, this is good. Now I can focus on giving it a better UI to the button on the input. Type is equal to button. Border is none. And background is, let me use flat UI colors. I think this is the website that is really important for designers to use, or equivalent, not necessarily flat UI colors, but I prefer this one. I'm gonna use blue color because it's my favorite. If I'm talking about favorite color of all the, so color is white. This blue is way too light, so I'm gonna use darker one. And height equal to 50 px. I think this will be way too much, but okay, look good. It looks good. So heading left, because text is very close to the border left. Heading left will be 1 em, I guess. No, 0.5. Okay, so this looks, but I want it on the text only. Text. Input type is equal to pass. You can see here this area, it's sign in button, that it was also shifted to the reading left 0.5. So I'm gonna give this, I'm gonna give it another property, that is cursor pointer. So on mouse over it feels like it's a button. Okay, so let's create one more hover and give this one lighter click. So let's see. Okay, so I can write active here. Okay, this looks beautiful. Okay, let's ignore forgot password for now because we are not working on the password reset here. So I think this is looking good, not bad. So after this, let's work on the click event and everything. So the first thing in JavaScript is to understand that before working on this, we need to understand what is and how do we create different objects and assign value to the data types like variables, integer, and everything. JavaScript only supports three things, that is var, let, and constant. Okay, so the var is actually x is equal to 0. So just like Python language, yes, Python is very easier because it only is x is equal to 0. But when you write var x is equal to 0, it means that you are declaring a variable that is of 0 value and has an alias that is x. But it also detects the type of the value. So if it's 0, it knows that it is a integer value. When I write variable x is equal to 0.0, it knows that it is float value. So when I run this application, I have declared 2 times here the variable x. You will find no error. Why? Because I'm just overwriting the application here to give the alias x a new type of value. Okay, even if I write a string value here test, it will not give you any error. Why? Because it knows that I have overwritten the definition of the value for the alias x. But when I write let 2 times here, okay, now let's run it, you will see an error because it says redeclaration of x is not possible. Okay, so let means you declare a variable but you cannot declare it once again in the trailing part of the code. Okay, so but when I write constant, now see the magic, there it says redeclaration of constant x, but let works like that, right? So but when I'm writing constant x is equal to 0 and then write x is equal to test, let's see what happens. Still you get an error. Why? Because constant says when you have assigned a value at the time of declaration, you cannot change the value. So there is difference between let. Let says you can only declare it once. Constant says you can only declare it once, but also you cannot change the value even if you are not declaring it. Okay, so this is different between that. Okay, after that, let's talk about conditional statements. Conditional statements. Okay, so when we talk about conditional statements, it simply means is that if condition, if x is equal to 0, so this is how, just like any other generic programming language except Python, this is very much and very much equal to C# or Java code. Okay, but apart from that, if we talk about something different, that is in for loop, that is loops. So loop, that is when you write for variable x is equal to 0, x is less than 10, x plus plus. Okay, so when I type this and take this out, apart from alert, you can also use console to prompt a message. So console.log and I write x and let's run it. So you will see error, no error, but you will see that in console prompt, this area, that is console window, you will see there is loop being printing 0 1 2 3 4 2 till 9. So console can be used by the developers to show a hidden message that is not visible to the generic user, because generic user does not use this console and other inspector development tools. So they are usually development tools. So this is like not disturbing the website, but checking if values are coming correct or not. Like for example, if you find a value and you multiply it with another value, but you get an error, then you find out that the error is coming because value x and y, in value x and y, x has null value which is multiplying with some other integer value. Now null cannot be multiplied with another value. This is just an example, but there are multiple types of examples. So loops are just like any other programming language, only if there is not integer, float or anything, because JavaScript understands the value itself. Okay, then you have functions. Well, functions are quite different than Java and other programming language. By, let's say I write a function clicker. Let's say I create a function that does some kind of clicky event, so I call it a clicker. So the uniqueness is that here is that just like we are using variable for declaring any type of value or any data type, function does not require to have a type like integer function, float function or void function. When you type function, it's a function. If you don't write return statement inside the function, it's just a generic function, that is void function. And if you write return I think return 0 here, it automatically knows through the return statements whether it's an integer function or a float function or a string function. So nothing to worry about that. So this will work and this will also both work. Don't consider this as a constructor. Okay, this is just a function. So this is how functions work here. Same, one thing I forgot to mention is that in variable section, when I write variable x is equal to 0 and then x is equal to 0 plus test. So check this magic, console.log and x. So check this out. You write here is 0 test. That means the concatenation between two different types is possible in JavaScript, that is integer and string. If I write here 2.5 and I run it, you write 2.5 test. So concatenation is possible. So JavaScript, in this JavaScript language, this is a very powerful statement, but it is also a problem when you have wrong values and it just concatenates them and gives you no error. Then you can have a wrong value in your database entry, and that can be very much problem. For example, you have to write age, okay, and then you have to write you can say GPA. Imagine you just fetch a wrong column of the database and it writes 2.5 CGPA, but instead of age writes Ali Mubin. So 2.5 CGPA Ali Mubin, and JavaScript just concatenates that total value and just paste it. So you will not see any kind of or feel any kind of error even in this console part. Okay, so always check console part, but if you see this thing and then you use that for another formula, but instead of concatenation you write asterisk here, then this will give you an error. Okay, this is not a number. It does not give you a red color error or red color of big chunk of statement saying you have written this wrong, some kind of exception or etc etc. It will just give you not a number, and NaN means not a number because it tells that 2.5 is not cannot multiply with test because test is a string and a string is not a number. That is very much clear to you. I hope everyone has this much clear. Okay, so this was basic part of the JavaScript. So let's move on. So creating a click event is very easy. So on click is equal to, I'm gonna write here login function, let's say. So this login function, and I'm assuming that we are logging through a web API or some server side code which will be used through HTTP request, which is not part of our course, but it works that when you type an HTTP request, it does not refresh your page. Instead, it just submits the data to the backend like C# language in .NET framework or in Java Spring Boot, it's Java language, and in Python Django. This is how this much works. Okay, so when I write function login and alert this test, we on click, so it tells the button that you have a special function called onClick. Although there is not just onClick, you can write. So you have multiple functions here. Okay. So on about, blur, can play, click, double click, drag, on drag over, on drag start. So there are so many events that you can exploit and create interactive applications based on the way you are creating. It can be, most of them can be used in games like on drag start and drag stop. It means that when you start dragging an HTML element, what it should do, and when you stop dragging an element, that is end of your dragging event, what it should do. That can be used in games. Not necessarily, but I'm just giving you an example. Please don't consider this as a logged statement by me. So function login alert test, and let's run it, and we can see that our click event is alhamdulillah working. So after this, let's get these value. So before typing, getting the value, don't forget to mention IDs or class or something that actually uniquely identifies that special field. Like in our case, that is email address. So I'll write email, or just simply username. Then you have ID, and then you type here is password. That is very easiest part to type an ID. Okay, so the difficult part is to forget that I have written in the wrong area. So be careful. This is an input element, but this is a button element. You have to write here. So this is the easiest way to create a function click event. So variable username is equal to username. Okay, so this username will automatically be fetched by this, but in older browsers you have to write document.getElement by ID and then type here username. Okay, I'm gonna put it somewhere here so that you can see like this. So it will find in the DOM, it will find the document and then document's child element called username. Okay, you can use both. Okay, so dot value is important. If you don't write that, it will create an error. But I think I have done something wrong, so let's test it if it actually fetches the value or not. Test, and it will test. Yes, it's creating getting the value. So one of them is, this is the way, or you can directly write username dot value. Let's see if my browser supports that. Yes, it's supporting still username. So this is the newer way, username dot value. It automatically understand what you are typing. But document.getElement by ID is most commonly used, so I'm gonna use that in case you have a older browser. User password is equal to document.getElement by ID and password. So we have got the password. Okay. So now we can do is check. Let's not put value here and see what it's coming before I can tell you further. So if I write, instead of writing dot value, I'm just taking this whole element and paste it. So you will see what it's giving you. It's giving you object HTML input element. When we talk about that, it means that it's taking whole HTML code of it. So let's not test it on alert. Let's test it on console.log, and you will see the magic that JavaScript actually fetches the whole input element with its all HTML properties, its HTML code, any attributes that I have applied like onClick, its classes, its ID and everything. So let's see, as I have not given any class to the input element, you can see the class name is empty. Let's check the ID field here. So I is here, ID is username. Check this out. Isn't this awesome? You have all the attributes fetched just by calling it in the browser. So moving on. So what I'm going to do is check if username dot value is empty, or instead of or, just this is fine. So after testing, and I will get the value. If I write here dot trim, so trim means that if I am writing something like this, space, so this space is a problem. So it trims the starting and ending empty spaces, so that only you are left with this value. So trim is a good function, use it, and I hope this is very much clear. So if it's empty, just type username dot class list. Why class list? Because classes can be multiple for the HTML element. So it's just considers class list as a collection. As I can write here is like, for example, class username, field, and input. So these are three different classes. So now I can see that this is actually collection of classes, and this is a class list instead of a singular class. So class list dot add, and I write here error. So error will be the CSS class that we will create here, and since the DOM is working together and class is included here at the top, so error will already be declared, and whenever I want to add it in a class or HTML element, I can do that. So border 1px solid Indian red, okay, and color is Indian red, okay. So class list dot add. Same will be case for user password, okay. So let's test it. Let me remove this value and refresh it, and you can see here that it's highlighting that there is some this area is empty and you need to type something inside it. So after doing that, but password was not giving because I just tested its value, but I did not apply class it error on the password. Instead, I again repeated the same code like username.classfield.add at the bottom. So now you can see here it's giving you error. So isn't this very much fun that you can control and give so easily without even refreshing your page? See, it's not even refreshing your page. So without consulting or disturbing the server, you can do the validation if you know the correct tools for UI UX experience. Okay, after doing so, let's give a message here. Instead of BR here, let me write span and call it error message. By default, error message does not have any class, so no, let's call it ID, and the message will have I think there is nothing to honestly, I think it's self-explaining. So message will have 5px padding and text align center. Let's for now keep it at center. Okay, so now error message. Okay, one thing to note here is that I have to again type error message because I'm declaring a new class here, but you cannot write dash message here. So error message underscore, this will be a variable that will call get element by ID and error dash message. I think calling it error message would be better. Dash is not a good practice. Dash should be used, hyphen should be used for classes. So error message dot class list dot add message, and then error message dot inner HTML is equal to username or password is not, field is empty, field is empty. This would be better English message. Okay, so let's use this for both of them. So we don't want the message all the time, we want it when there is some kind of error. So I can write password is empty and username field is empty. Now it will make sure that both fields are important. So when I write like this, password field is empty. Okay, so plus and plus, because we don't want any kind of mistake. So before doing this, on every click it should be obvious that error message should not have. Okay, so like this. What I'm doing is whenever I click at login button, it clears the message so that it checks again, and if there is any kind of need, then and only then put a new message inside it. So I think this is fine, and I need to reset it so it will be clear. So username field is empty, password field is empty. Okay, but there is something fishy here, so I'm gonna write width 100%. Username is empty, password field is empty. What could be wrong? Yes. Let's say this one. Okay, this one is because this is inner HTML. So whenever you write error message dot inner HTML, what it does is put the new HTML code that you write in this string part inside that div element. So whatever you write will come in this highlighted space. Okay. So refresh, and username field is empty, password field is empty. It looks good, but I think the problem is with the extra spaces. So if I remove these spaces here and let's get button element a margin of top of 5px. I think 5px is enough. No, this is way too low. So 15. Yes, now this looks good. So yes, this looks better. But I think text align center is actually looking very bad. So instead of typing this, I think this one is better. Okay, so I think this is more than enough. So for the validation, and this part is looking good. So user field is empty, and yes, one thing I forgot. This asterisk is always looking good, and yes, this is more than enough. So now we have this much clear, and when I type let's say Ali Mubin 92, so now you can see here only password field is empty. So when I empty this username, write only password, so it will give username field as it is. So isn't this really clean and superb that you can do this without even disturbing the what I was going to say, disturbing the server side. So this does not disturb or put load on the server, clearing the freedom for the server to only work on extensive tasks. Okay, so I hope this much is clear to you guys, and I think the button needs more padding. Oh, sorry, margin 25px, I guess. Yes, now this looks good. Superb. So this is how JavaScript works, and this was one of the easiest ways to do it. Okay, so you should use this, and you can type regular expressions here, like here in case of pattern, and you can put regular expression pattern here. So let's take a regular expression for password, and it can give you a lot of regular expressions like a password should contain this and that, and it should contain at least one digit, at least one number. So this one here is to say let's take this and paste it over here. Okay, so one thing more, that this pattern will work only when you have HTTP request. So let's call this a form and take it. How does it look? Form, and method is post, let's say. We call this a submit button because submit works when you click it, only submit button goes to the server side. So submit. So you can see it's refreshing the page and pattern is actually not working, but this is due to the fact that we are actually not sending it to any server. So if I write submit and I type here required, let's see, yes, please fill out this field. So required keyword is working, but the pattern is not working because it's not associated with any kind of jQuery library or pattern matching content here. So you will have to define that yourself. So let's say JavaScript. Okay. So W3 source password validation and where is this password? I can't see. Mail type text is equal to this. Check password. Okay. So the regular expression that we made can be used here in this state if user password.value.match. So match is actually a function, as you can see here, based on the World Wide Web resource. It's actually the official part where you can say JavaScript's new libraries and everything is discussed, but this is not new. We can use it. So I can just copy this code here with regular expression and type here. Just I have to change the alias, that is my own. So user password. Okay. So it says something like it should contain numbers, and then let me study to check a password between 17 to 16 character which contain only character numeric underscore and first character must be letter. Okay. So not completing everything, but let's test it. Refresh. Wrong. It means it's not in the form. So Ali 1 2 3. Wrong. It says to type a symbol Ali 1 2 3 underscore. Still wrong. Oh my god, what am I doing wrong? To check a password which contain at least one numeric digit, one uppercase and okay. So it needs a number of characters should be at least 6 to 20. So Ali Mubin 1 2 3 underscore. Correct. So that means the pattern matching can be used here. Okay. So this return false and this is not important to write here. You can just put your error message here and call it the wrong password. We do not need to write anything here. Okay. So password, if password is wrong and it does not match the characters, it's between 6 to 20 characters with capital and small letters, okay, and also underscore. Anyway, the password does not contain either 6 to 20 characters or let's just write this. Okay, so let's test it. Okay, password field is empty. Password does not contain either 6 to 20 characters with capital. Oh my god, what an English. Sorry. So right now I'm not going to type this at the bottom of the error list because password should be at the top so that password is actually close together with the password field. Okay. So instead of plus equal to, what I'm going to write is before the previous error and then paste it. This is just the concatenation method. So password does not contain its file. So password is empty, user field is empty, and password does not contain the correct matches. So we are here. Let me test again. Okay, I need one more BR. Maybe because by default text is an inline element. Okay, this looks really beautiful now and very satisfying. And I can do one more thing is here, because inner HTML is actually a span. Oh, sorry, HTML code. I can write here is style equals to. Now check it out. I'm not writing double quotes because it means it's concatenating another element. So I'm writing single quotes so that it actually continues the string pattern. Okay. So I will write here color red. Okay. So I'm gonna use Indian red. Well, I love it. Okay, so now this is pen does not contain either. Okay, so I haven't closed it, so now it's closed. Take this out. Wow, this looks really beautiful. So I hope everyone understands how JavaScript is working for so far so good. Okay, so I will share this code, and this is a good code to understand for yourself. So I hope everyone will use it and make great use of it. Okay, so thank you and Allah Hafiz.